She mistook a Mafia boss for the technician installing Wi-Fi, but that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Emma stood outside her apartment complex, staring at her phone as the message from the landlord came through. Wi-Fi installation at 10 amperes. Today. She glanced at her wristwatch just a few minutes before the technician would arrive. Emma had just moved into this new apartment, a small one-bedroom in the heart of the city. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She felt proud of the little space she had carved out for herself, after months of juggling multiple jobs and barely making ends meet. But now, she had to figure out how to make her rent payments without her usual late-night shifts. She sighed deeply, adjusting the straps on her worn-out sandals as she turned to head inside. The technician had been scheduled to arrive at exactly 10 amperes. But when Emma opened the door to her apartment, she was surprised to see a man already standing in the hallway. He was dressed in a simple work shirt, tool belt slung around his waist, and carrying a heavy bag of equipment. "I'm here to install your Wi-Fi," he said with a deep voice that immediately caught her off guard. Emma smiled awkwardly. "Oh, I thought you were someone else," she laughed nervously, her mind still racing over the logistics of settling in. She stepped aside to let him in, thinking he was just another contractor sent by the apartment management. He didn't seem to care much about the awkwardness, instead focusing on setting up his equipment as he moved silently through the apartment. Emma continued to watch him as he worked, noticing his quiet demeanor. His movements were deliberate, calm, almost unnervingly so. "So, where are you from?" she asked, hoping to make small talk and ease her nerves. "Just here for work," he replied shortly, glancing over at her with an unreadable expression. Emma shrugged off the sudden unease she felt. He wasn't being rude, just distant. She assumed he was probably one of those quiet, no-nonsense guys who just wanted to get the job done. She started talking to him about her life, about the struggles of adjusting to her new apartment, her dreams of opening her own art studio one day, and how hard it was to balance everything. He didn't say much in response, only nodding occasionally. Yet she felt a strange connection. There was something oddly reassuring about his silent presence. Maybe it was the way he listened, or maybe it was his calm energy that somehow made her feel at ease, despite the weirdness of the situation. But then, just as she was about to ask him about his own life, he finished setting up the Wi-Fi and started packing his things. "All set," he said simply. "That's it?" Emma asked, surprised. "Yeah. That's all," he replied with a small smile before turning to leave. "Thanks, I guess," Emma muttered, still trying to make sense of the strange encounter. He nodded and left without another word. It wasn't until the next day, when she was invited to a charity gala by a friend, that everything clicked into place. There, on the stage, was the same man she had mistakenly assumed was a technician, only this time, he wasn't in a work shirt. He wore a sharp suit and stood confidently beside a microphone. "And now, let's welcome Liam Parker, CEO of Parker Enterprises," the host announced. Emma's heart skipped a beat. The man she had just spent an hour with, assuming he was a simple worker, was actually a powerful and wealthy CEO. Shocked, she quickly left the event, her mind spinning. She couldn't believe it. What had she missed? What had he been hiding? The realization hit her hard, and the embarrassment followed quickly after. She'd made a huge mistake. Little did she know, this one mistake was about to change everything. The following day, Emma couldn't shake the image of Liam Parker from her mind. She kept replaying the encounter at the gala over and over in her head. How could she have mistaken him for a technician? The same man who, just the day before, had been quietly setting up her Wi-Fi in her small, modest apartment, was now a CEO, standing confidently before a crowd at a high-profile event. It made her feel like a fool, but also a bit ashamed of her own assumptions. She never imagined that a simple mistake could lead to such a whirlwind of emotions. But as much as she tried to forget about it, she couldn't. The next few days passed in a blur, with Emma pushing through her busy work schedule, trying to settle into her new life, and attempting to distract herself from the strange encounter. She even told herself she was being silly for letting it bother her. After all, he was just a man rich, powerful, and out of her league. It was easy to assume he was just another wealthy businessman who lived a life she would never understand. But deep down, something kept nagging at her. The way he listened to her, the way he didn't judge her for her messy life, her struggles with bills, and her broken dreams. It was hard to ignore the feeling that there was more to him than just his wealth and status. Then, one afternoon, she received a message from an unknown number. She hesitated, then opened it. The message was brief, yet powerful. "I think we need to talk. Liam Parker." Her heart raced, and she almost dropped her phone. She stared at the screen, unsure what to do next. Should she ignore it? Pretend like it never happened? Or should she take the risk and find out what he wanted? After a few minutes of pacing around her apartment, she took a deep breath and replied, "Okay, when?" Moments later, he responded with a simple address: "Tomorrow, 3 p.m., at the corner cafe." The next day, Emma showed up at the cafe, her nerves on edge. She hadn't told anyone about this meeting. She didn't even know if it was a good idea. The moment she entered, she scanned the room and spotted him almost immediately. He was sitting at a corner table, his back straight, a coffee cup in front of him. This time, he was dressed casually. But there was still something intimidating about him. He didn't seem like the kind of man who just sat in cafes and had casual meetings. As she walked over, he stood up, giving her a polite nod. "Emma," he said, his voice smooth, with just a hint of warmth. "Thank you for meeting me." She sat down across from him, unsure of what to expect. "I didn't think you'd want to talk to me after what happened," she said, trying to hide her unease behind a forced smile. "After all, I made a fool of myself." Liam's expression softened. "You didn't make a fool of yourself. You were just confused. It happens." Emma blinked, surprised by his easy dismissal of the situation. "I still can't believe I mistook you for a technician." She laughed nervously, trying to make light of the awkwardness. Liam smiled faintly. "It's not the first time. Believe me, I've been mistaken for less glamorous things." He paused, then leaned in slightly. "But that's not why I wanted to meet you. I wanted to apologize for not being upfront with you earlier. I should have told you who I was, but the truth is, I didn't want you to see me as just another millionaire. I wanted to get to know the real you." Emma stared at him, unsure how to respond. His words were unexpected, and for a brief moment, she felt like she was seeing a side of him she hadn't anticipated. He wasn't just a man who owned companies or threw extravagant parties. He was a man who had been vulnerable enough to hide his identity because he wanted something more than just admiration for his wealth. "But why?" she asked. "Why go through all that trouble?" Liam sighed and leaned back in his chair, his gaze distant for a moment. "Because I think there's more to life than just business deals and money. I've spent years building an empire, but it's never made me feel too whole. And when I met you, when I saw how real you were, how passionate you were about the things you care about, it made me realize there's something I've been missing." Emma listened carefully, her heart pounding. This was not the Liam she had expected. "So, what do you want from me?" she asked softly, still trying to make sense of everything. He met her eyes and held her gaze steadily. "I want to get to know you better. No lies, no pretenses, just two people figuring out what's important." Emma couldn't believe it. This man, who she had thought was nothing more than a powerful businessman, was now sitting in front of her, offering something real, something that felt genuine. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew this conversation was only the beginning. Emma spent the next few days replaying her conversation with Liam over and over again in her mind. The sincerity in his voice, the way he looked at her as if she mattered, kept echoing in her thoughts. She never expected to meet someone like him, someone who not only had wealth and power, but also seemed to want something deeper, something real. She had always imagined that men like Liam, CEOs, and successful entrepreneurs, would only look for something superficial. Yet here he was, showing a vulnerability she hadn't expected. She felt conflicted, unsure whether to embrace the possibility of something real with him or to keep her distance. She had learned the hard way not to trust easily. But there was something about Liam that made her question everything she thought she knew. On the fourth day after their meeting, Liam invited her to dinner again. This time, he had chosen a cozy little bistro near the waterfront, the kind of place where the lighting was soft and the atmosphere intimate. Emma was nervous. She had been doing well on her own, but the thought of opening up to someone like Liam felt like stepping into unknown territory. When she arrived, Liam was already seated at a corner table, looking out the window at the water. His calm presence made her feel at ease, but there was a part of her that was still unsure of where this was going. "You look beautiful," he said as she sat down, his voice warm but not overly familiar. Emma smiled nervously, pushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "Thank you," she replied, her voice a little shaky. "I wasn't sure if I should come tonight, to be honest," she admitted, her eyes meeting his. "I mean, this all feels so fast. But here I am." Liam leaned forward, his expression gentle. "I understand. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. I just wanted to take the time to get to know you better. Outside of all the chaos. I've spent so much of my life building my business, but I've never had time to really connect with anyone." Emma felt her heart soften as she listened to him. She had heard of powerful CEOs like him before, men who were always consumed by their work, who rarely looked beyond their own success. But Liam didn't seem like that at all. He seemed different. "It's just hard for me to trust people," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been burned before, by people who pretended to care. And then, I just felt used." Liam nodded, his gaze never leaving hers. "I can't undo your past, Emma, but I can promise you this. I'm not here to take advantage of you. I don't want anything from you, except maybe a chance to show you that there are still people out there who believe in real connections." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. His words were so genuine, so different from the lines she had heard from others before. It was hard to believe, but a small part of her wanted to. "But why me?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You could have anyone you want. Why go through all this trouble to get to know someone like me?" Liam sat back in his chair and took a deep breath. "Because I've met a lot of people in my life, Emma. I've met the rich, the powerful, the beautiful, but none of them have made me feel the way you do. You're real, you're authentic, and that's rare. I think you deserve to have a life that's yours, not defined by who you're supposed to be or who other people want you to be." Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek before she could stop it. She quickly wiped it away, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to get emotional," she said, laughing softly. Liam reached across the table and gently took her hand. "Don't apologize," he said softly. "You're allowed to feel however you feel. And if I can be someone who helps you feel a little less alone in this world, then that's more than enough for me." The rest of the evening passed in a haze of laughter and shared stories. Emma found herself opening up in ways she never thought possible. She told him about her struggles, her dreams of one day opening a small art gallery, and how hard it had been to get to this point in her life. Liam listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, never interrupting, and always showing genuine interest. As the evening drew to a close, Liam walked her to her car, his hand still resting lightly on her back. "I want to see you again, Emma," he said, his voice low but sincere. "And not just because you're interesting or beautiful, but because I feel like I've finally found someone who sees the world the way I do, someone who understands what it means to truly live, not just exist." Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her, but she held it back. She wasn't ready to admit how much he had already started to mean to her. "I'll see you soon," she said softly, her voice steady. As she drove home, she couldn't help but smile. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change in a way she never expected. The following weeks with Liam were a whirlwind for Emma. At first, she had been cautious, not fully sure of what she was getting herself into. But the more time they spent together, the more she realized how different he was from anyone she had ever met. Liam was everything she had imagined in a man successful, intelligent, and driven. But what truly stood out to her was how he listened, how he genuinely cared about what she said. It was refreshing to be around someone who wasn't just interested in her looks or her circumstances. He was interested in her heart, her mind, her dreams. Their connection deepened with each passing day. They spent hours talking, whether it was over coffee, dinner, or during evening walks around the city. Liam often spoke about his childhood, how he had grown up in a family that prioritized wealth above everything else, and how that had shaped his view on life. "I was always told that money was the most important thing," he had confessed one night as they walked along the quiet streets of downtown. "But the older I get, the more I realize that it's not the money that matters. It's the people, the relationships we build, the connections we make. That's what gives life meaning." Emma had nodded, feeling a sense of understanding. She had always been driven by her desire to make a better life for herself, but she also knew deep down that the people she met along the way, the friendships she forged, and the love she experienced were what truly made life worth living. As their relationship grew, Emma found herself becoming more comfortable with Liam. They shared intimate moments, sometimes talking about their past, sometimes just sitting in silence, enjoying each other's company. But as much as she wanted to believe that everything was perfect, a part of her still held back. She couldn't fully let go of the fear that one day, everything would come crashing down. One evening, after a particularly beautiful dinner at one of Liam's favorite restaurants, Emma found herself sitting in the passenger seat of Liam's sleek black car, looking out at the city skyline. The twinkling lights reflected in the windows, creating a breathtaking view. "Liam," she began, her voice uncertain. "I've been thinking." He turned to her, his expression softening. "About what?" "About us," she said, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. "I mean, things have been great, and I don't want to ruin this. But I need to know, are you just doing this because you feel sorry for me?" Liam's face immediately fell, his eyebrows knitting together in confusion. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she continued, her voice shaking slightly, "you're this successful, powerful man, and I'm just me. A waitress with big dreams, but not much else to show for it. I guess I'm just wondering why you would want someone like me." Liam was quiet for a long moment, his hands gripping the steering wheel. When he spoke again, his voice was low and steady. "Emma, I don't feel sorry for you. I never have. What I feel is something real, something I've never felt before." He paused, searching her eyes for any hint of doubt. "I didn't start this relationship because I pity you, or because you're in some kind of difficult situation. I started it because I want to know you. I want to see what happens between us. I want to build something that lasts." Emma was silent for a moment, taking in his words. She had never allowed herself to be vulnerable like this before, but for some reason, with Liam, it felt easier. Maybe it was because he didn't try to fix her, didn't try to rescue her. He just accepted her for who she was. "But what if I mess things up?" she whispered, her insecurities creeping in. "What if I'm not enough for you?" Liam smiled, his hand gently touching hers. "You're more than enough, Emma. You've always been enough, and I'm not going anywhere." The sincerity in his voice melted her fears away, even if only for that moment. Still, there was something inside her that couldn't fully relax, couldn't fully believe that someone like him, with so much at stake, could want someone like her. The next day, Liam called her with an invitation she couldn't turn down. He had arranged a weekend getaway to a small cabin in the woods, far away from the hustle and bustle of the city. "I want to take you somewhere peaceful," he said. "Somewhere we can just be. No distractions, no expectations, just us." Emma hesitated at first, her nerves kicking in at the thought of being alone with him for an entire weekend. But something told her this was the next step. She needed this time to fully let go of her doubts and allow herself to experience what she had been afraid of. True connection, true intimacy. When she arrived at the cabin, she was stunned by how beautiful it was. It was everything she had imagined, a cozy retreat nestled in the woods, surrounded by nature's tranquility. The weekend was filled with long conversations by the fire, hiking through the trees, and simple moments of laughter. It was everything Emma needed to clear her mind and open her heart to the possibility of a future with Liam. But as the weekend drew to a close, Emma found herself standing on the porch, looking out at the vast expanse of trees, her heart heavy with uncertainty. Liam joined her, standing beside her in the quiet stillness. "Emma," he said softly, "I want to be with you, for the long haul. But I need you to trust me. I need you to trust us." She turned to him, her eyes filled with emotion. "I want to trust you," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "but I'm scared." Liam smiled and took her hand in his. I know. But that's what makes this real. The fear, the uncertainty. We face it together. And for the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something beautiful. The next few weeks felt like a dream for Emma. Liam had swept her off her feet with his kindness, his understanding, and his ability to make her feel seen in ways she had never experienced before. It wasn't just his wealth that attracted her. It was the man behind the empire, someone who had spent his life working towards success but still managed to hold on to his humanity. They spent more time together, whether it was quiet dinners, long drives out of the city, or spontaneous dates where Liam would surprise her with small gestures that always took her breath away. Yet, despite everything that was going perfectly in her life, Emma still had lingering doubts. As much as she wanted to believe that this was real, that Liam's intentions were pure, there was always a small voice in the back of her mind reminding her of the differences between them. He was a powerful man with a world of wealth and influence, and she was still trying to make ends meet with her part-time jobs and dreams of becoming an artist. Could someone like him really love someone like her? One evening, Emma sat in her small apartment, sketching in her notebook. It had been a busy week, and she was waiting for Liam to pick her up for their usual dinner date. As she scribbled the details of a new art piece, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Liam. I have something important to tell you. I want to talk about us tonight. Please don't worry. Her stomach dropped. She didn't know why, but the message unsettled her. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was this about their future? Was he about to tell her that he couldn't do this anymore? The doubt crept in, making her feel more uncertain than she had in a long time. When Liam arrived at her door, she greeted him with a forced smile, trying to mask the anxiety building inside her. You okay? He asked, noticing the tension in her posture. Yeah, just a little tired. She lied, her heart racing. He raised an eyebrow but didn't push. They left for the restaurant, a cozy little Italian place Liam had recently discovered. As they settled into their table, the soft hum of the restaurant around them felt oddly distant to Emma. She could barely focus on the menu in front of her. Liam, noticing her unease, reached across the table, taking her hand in his. Emma, he began, his voice soft but serious. I need you to know something. I've been thinking a lot about us, about how far we've come, and what I want for the future. She nodded, trying to steady her breathing. I know we haven't known each other that long, but in that time, I've realized something important. I don't want this to be just another fling or another relationship that fades away. I'm serious about us. I care about you more than you know. The words he said were reassuring, but the fear inside her didn't fade. She squeezed his hand tightly, trying to push the doubts aside. Liam, I care about you too, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But sometimes I wonder if someone like you, someone with so much to lose, could really want someone like me. Liam's face softened, and he leaned in closer. You think I'm with you because of your job or your circumstances? He asked, his voice quiet but firm. I'm with you because of who you are. You've brought something into my life that I didn't even know was missing: realness, warmth, and a perspective I didn't have before. I'm not here because of your past or your future. I'm here because I believe in you, in what we're building together. Emma felt her eyes welling up with tears. His words, so sincere, melted away the walls she had built around her heart. She had always feared that relationships were based on convenience, that people stayed together because of what the other could offer. But Liam wasn't asking for anything. He just wanted her. But what about everything else? Emma whispered. What about all the complications that come with us? With the life you lead? With the people around you? With your business? I can't fit into that world. I've never been part of a world like yours. Liam looked at her, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his lips. You don't have to fit into my world, he said. I want to build a world with you. A world that's ours, where we don't have to worry about what other people think or the expectations they have for us. Just us, creating something real. The sincerity in his eyes, the calmness of his words, finally broke through the last of her reservations. For the first time, she felt the possibility of a future with him, not as his charity case, not as an accessory to his life, but as his equal. She leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. I want that too. I want to build something real with you. They spent the rest of the evening talking about their hopes, their dreams, and what the future could look like together. Emma didn't have all the answers, and neither did Liam. But for the first time, she realized that it didn't matter. What mattered was that they were willing to face the unknown together, to build a life that wasn't defined by wealth or status, but by love, trust, and a shared vision. As they left the restaurant, hand in hand, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. Their journey was far from over, but it felt like they were finally on the right path. And for the first time in her life, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a happily ever after. The weeks that followed felt like a turning point for Emma. She had let go of the fears that had haunted her for so long, and with Liam by her side, she started to imagine a future that was hers to create. Their relationship grew stronger with each passing day, built on the foundation of trust, shared dreams, and mutual respect. But despite the warmth between them, Emma could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. Liam's life was filled with constant responsibilities, his business dealings, the events he had to attend, the people who constantly sought his attention. Emma had always been used to a quiet life, one where she could focus on her art and the little things that mattered to her. But now, her world was starting to collide with his, and it felt overwhelming at times. One evening, Liam invited her to a gala, a high-profile event that would bring together some of the most influential people in the city. Emma was hesitant at first, not because she didn't want to be with him, but because she felt out of place in that world. The glitz, the glamour, it was all so different from her simple life. But Liam insisted. "You're with me, Emma," he said with a reassuring smile. "You belong right by my side." The night of the gala arrived, and Emma stood in front of her mirror, feeling like she was dressing up for someone else's life. She wore the elegant dress Liam had picked out for her, but as she looked at her reflection, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She was used to being the girl who didn't fit in, the one who dreamed of more, but never quite felt like she belonged. Tonight, though, she would be stepping into Liam's world, and she wasn't sure if she was ready. When Liam arrived to pick her up, he looked as handsome as ever, dressed in a sharp black suit that fit him perfectly. He smiled warmly when he saw her, his eyes filled with admiration. "You look stunning," he said, taking her hand gently. "Let's make tonight unforgettable." As they arrived at the gala, the atmosphere was as glamorous as she had imagined. The venue was a grand ballroom, filled with well-dressed people mingling, laughing, and exchanging business cards. Emma felt a bit out of place among them, unsure of how to navigate this world. Liam, however, was in his element. He moved through the crowd with ease, greeting people, making small talk, and effortlessly commanding the attention of everyone around him. Emma tried to keep up, but the more she watched him, the more she realized how much of a world he inhabited that she didn't quite understand. As the evening went on, Emma found herself growing increasingly quiet, feeling the weight of her insecurities take over. She felt like an outsider, unsure of how to fit in or make small talk with people who seemed so far removed from her reality. It was then that Liam noticed. He stepped away from the group he was speaking with and walked over to her, a concerned look on his face. "Hey," he said softly, his voice gentle. "You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." Emma forced a smile, trying to shake off the nervous energy that had taken hold of her. "I'm fine, really," she said. But Liam wasn't convinced. He took her hand, leading her to a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the noise and the crowd. "Emma," he began, his voice serious yet tender. "You don't need to prove anything here. You don't have to fit into anyone's expectations. I'm with you because I want to be, not because of what anyone else thinks." Emma looked into his eyes, the sincerity in his gaze making her feel like she was the only person in the room. "I know," she whispered, "but sometimes I feel like I'm not enough. Like I'm just pretending." Liam shook his head, his thumb gently brushing over the back of her hand. "You don't have to pretend with me. You're enough just as you are, and you'll always be enough." The words hit her harder than she expected. For so long, Emma had believed that she wasn't enough either. Not rich enough, not accomplished enough, not polished enough. But here Liam was, telling her that she was perfect as she was. It felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything." Liam smiled, his eyes softening. I'll always be here for you, Emma, no matter what. The rest of the evening passed more comfortably. With Liam by her side, Emma felt a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't just Liam's girlfriend at a fancy event. She was herself, with all her imperfections and dreams. And for the first time in a long while, she felt at peace with who she was. As they left the gala, walking hand in hand through the cool night air, Emma realized that she wasn't just part of Liam's world, she was creating her own world with him, a world where they both belonged. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. As the months passed, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to deepen. They had both learned to navigate the complexities of their differences, his world of high society and business, and her simple, grounded life. Despite the contrast, they found common ground, and Emma began to feel more at home in Liam's world. She no longer felt like an outsider, though the fear of not being enough still lingered in the back of her mind. Liam was always there to reassure her, to remind her that she didn't have to change who she was to fit in. "You're perfect just as you are," he would often say. And for the most part, Emma believed him. But a part of her still wrestled with the fear that one day, her past, her struggles, would become too much for Liam to bear. As comfortable as they had become with each other, Emma knew that life wasn't always easy, and things weren't always as perfect as they seemed. And that reality hit her one fateful afternoon. Emma was sitting in her apartment, working on a new art piece she had been commissioned to create, when she received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was the kind of call that immediately put her on edge. "Hello?" she answered, her voice shaky. "Emma, this is Carl. I'm with the law firm representing your landlord." Emma's heart sank. "What's going on?" she asked, her breath caught in her throat. "It's about your rent. You're 3 months behind on your payments, and the landlord is threatening to take legal action if the balance isn't settled soon." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. She had been doing everything she could to stay afloat, working long hours and cutting corners. But somehow, the payments had slipped through the cracks. She had tried to keep up, but the bills kept piling up, and now she was facing the consequences. "I'm so sorry," Emma whispered, feeling the weight of her failure settle in her chest. "I just need a little more time." Carl's voice softened. "I understand, but time is running out. If you don't have the full amount by the end of the month, we'll have no choice but to proceed with eviction." The words hit her like a punch to the stomach. Eviction. The word echoed in her mind, and for a moment, she felt like the walls were closing in. The thought of losing everything, the apartment, her little piece of independence, the dream she had worked so hard to build, felt overwhelming. She hung up the phone, her hands shaking. The weight of the situation was too much to handle alone. She needed someone to talk to, someone who could help her figure this out. Without thinking, she grabbed her phone and dialed Liam's number. It rang once, twice, before he picked up. "Emma?" His voice was immediately full of concern. "What's wrong?" "Liam," she said, her voice breaking. I don't know what to do. I've fallen behind on my rent, and now they're threatening to evict me." She could hear him pause on the other end of the line. "Emma, I'm coming over right now. Don't move." True to his word, Liam arrived at her apartment in less than 30 minutes. He stepped inside, his presence filling the space as he immediately pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "You're not alone in this," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We'll figure this out together." Emma couldn't help but let herself lean into him, the safety of his embrace, offering a momentary escape from the storm in her mind. "I'm so sorry, Liam," she whispered. "I don't want to burden you with my problems. I should be able to handle this on my own." Liam pulled back slightly, lifting her chin so that she met his eyes. "Emma," he said softly but firmly, "I'm here for you, no matter what. You don't have to carry this weight alone." His words, simple yet powerful, were exactly what she needed to hear. The shame she had been carrying melted away, and for the first time in weeks, Emma allowed herself to truly believe in the support he was offering. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice steadying. Liam looked around the room, his mind already working through the options. "We'll start by getting in touch with the landlord. I'll help you negotiate a payment plan, and if we need to, I'll cover the cost temporarily until you get back on your feet. But we're going to take this one step at a time, okay?" Emma's heart swelled at his words. She couldn't believe how far they had come, how much Liam was willing to do for her. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I would do without you." He smiled, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "You'll never have to find out. I'm not going anywhere." The next few days were filled with phone calls, meetings with the landlord, and a plan that Liam helped her put into motion. With his support, Emma was able to work out a deal that allowed her to keep her apartment and catch up on her rent in manageable payments. It wasn't easy, but it was a relief. The weight on her shoulders had lightened, and she knew that the journey ahead would still have its challenges. But with Liam by her side, Emma finally felt like she wasn't alone anymore. As the weeks passed, Emma's life seemed to find a new rhythm. The weight of her financial troubles had lifted, thanks to Liam's unwavering support. She had never imagined that someone like him, with all his power and wealth, could care so deeply about her. The bond they had formed felt stronger than anything she had experienced before. They continued to build their relationship, learning to balance the differences between their worlds. Emma was beginning to feel more comfortable in Liam's world, but she still knew that their path forward wouldn't always be easy. The stakes were high, her life had never been more intertwined with someone else's, and the thought of losing that was a constant fear in the back of her mind. Yet, for every doubt that crept in, Liam was there to reassure her, to show her that they were stronger together. Then one evening, just as Emma was beginning to think things were starting to settle, she received another message that threatened to shake the foundation they had built. It was from her old landlord, the one whose property she had struggled to keep up with. "We need to talk," the message read. "Urgent." Emma immediately felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She hadn't heard from him since the payment plan had been set, and the thought of him contacting her now unsettled her. She tried to push the feeling away, but the worry lingered. She called Liam. "Liam, I just got a message from my landlord. He says we need to talk. I don't know what this means." Liam's voice on the other end was steady. "We'll handle this together. Don't worry, I'll be there in an hour." True to his word, Liam arrived at Emma's apartment soon after. He walked in, his expression calm. But Emma could tell he was already thinking through the situation. "Let's go over everything," he said, sitting down beside her. "Tell me what you've heard from him." Emma recounted everything she knew, the payment plan that had been set, and the fact that the landlord had seemed satisfied with the agreement. Liam listened carefully, asking questions, making sure he had all the facts. "We'll meet with him. We'll get this sorted out," he said confidently. "I'm not letting you go through this alone." The next day, Liam and Emma went to meet the landlord. Emma was nervous, her mind racing with possible outcomes. As they walked into the landlord's office, she could feel the tension in the air. The landlord, a stern man with little patience for delays, was already waiting for them. "Miss Harper, Mr. Parker," he said coldly as they sat down. "I've been reviewing your payment history, and frankly, it's not good enough. The agreement you've made isn't sufficient. If we don't see immediate improvement, I'll have no choice but to take further action." Emma's heart sank. She glanced at Liam, who remained calm, his posture straight and confident. "What do you mean by further action?" Liam asked, his voice steady. The landlord leaned forward. "Eviction," he stated plainly. "You haven't followed the agreed-upon terms. You're still behind, and I can't let this go on any longer." Emma felt a wave of panic rise in her chest. She had worked so hard to get to this point, to keep her independence, and now it felt like it was slipping away. But Liam's calm presence kept her grounded. "We will work something out," he said, his voice firm. "I will personally ensure that the payments are brought up to date. You will receive the full amount owed by the end of the week." The landlord looked at him, clearly assessing the situation. After a long pause, he finally nodded. "I'll give you until Friday. If the full payment isn't received by then, we will proceed with eviction." Emma breathed a sigh of relief, though the weight of the situation still hung over her. As they left the landlord's office, Emma turned to Liam, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you," she said. "I don't know what I would do without you." Liam smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "You don't have to do anything alone," he said softly. "We'll get through this together." In the days that followed, Liam kept his promise. He made arrangements to cover the remaining balance of her rent, and Emma was able to pay off the full amount. She felt a sense of gratitude that was hard to put into words, but also a growing sense of fear. She couldn't help but wonder how long this would last. How long would Liam continue to save her, to be her safety net? She wasn't used to relying on anyone, and the idea of someone constantly stepping in to fix her problems made her feel vulnerable in a way she wasn't sure she could handle. But Liam seemed to understand her hesitation. One night, as they sat together on the couch, he turned to her and spoke gently. "Emma, I want you to know something," he said, his voice low but serious. "You're not a charity case. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to do everything on your own. I love you for who you are, not for what you've accomplished or haven't. You don't need to be scared of needing me. I'm here because I want to be, because I choose you." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she listened to him. His words pierced through the walls she had built around herself. And she realized that this wasn't about being saved. It was about two people supporting each other, building a life together. "I love you too, Liam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I'm learning to trust that you won't leave, no matter what." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. "Not now, not ever." And in that moment, Emma knew that the journey ahead wouldn't always be easy, but with Liam by her side, she could face whatever came their way. Together, as the months passed, Emma and Liam settled into a routine, one that felt both comforting and new. Their lives, once worlds apart, had begun to weave together in ways that felt natural, like two people who had been searching for each other without knowing it. Emma, now fully invested in her art, and with a sense of security she had never felt before, found herself growing not only as a person, but as an artist. She had finally opened the small gallery she had always dreamed of, with Liam's unwavering support every step of the way. It wasn't a grand opening or a huge event, but it didn't matter. For Emma, it was the realization of a dream, one that had always felt so far out of reach. Liam, true to his word, had been there for her in ways that went beyond just financial help. He believed in her talent, in her vision. He encouraged her to pursue her passion without hesitation, even when she doubted herself. He would often sit in the corner of her studio, quietly observing as she worked, offering nothing but his presence, which was enough to make her feel like she could take on the world. As Emma's life blossomed, she began to feel something else growing inside her, something deeper. The fear she had once felt about being vulnerable with Liam, about depending on him, had slowly melted away. She realized that love wasn't about being perfect or independent all the time. It was about trusting the person beside you, knowing that even in the toughest of times, you were in it together. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of their shared home, watching the sun set behind the trees, Emma looked at Liam with a soft smile. "I've been thinking a lot," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "About us. About how much we've grown, how far we've come." Liam turned to her, his gaze warm and full of understanding. "I know. I've been thinking about it too. But what I think the most is how lucky I am to have you in my life." Emma's heart swelled with emotion. She had heard him say he loved her countless times, but tonight, it felt different. There was a sense of permanence in his words, a promise that went beyond what they had already built together. "Liam," she began, her voice trembling with the weight of her feelings. "I don't know how I got so lucky. I never thought I could have a life like this, with someone like you. You've taught me so much about love, about trust, about myself." Liam reached over and took her hand in his thumb gently brushing over her skin. "You're the one who's taught me something. You've shown me what it means to truly care for someone, to be there for them, through everything. I've spent my whole life building things, companies, wealth, but nothing compares to what I have with you. You're the one who makes everything feel right." Emma looked into his eyes, the depth of his words hitting her in ways she hadn't expected. It wasn't just about the grand gestures or the things he had done for her. It was about the quiet moments they shared, the everyday acts of kindness that built the foundation of their love. "I think we're ready," Emma whispered. Liam raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "Ready for what?" "Ready for the next step," she said, her voice steady but filled with hope. "I'm ready for us to build something even bigger together. Not just the gallery, not just the business, but our future. Together." Liam's eyes softened, and he smiled the kind of smile that made her heart race. "I've been waiting for you to say that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He stood up, pulling her gently into his arms. "Emma, I love you. I want nothing more than to build a life with you. I want to spend every moment of my life with you." He paused for a moment, looking down at her with a serious but loving gaze. "Will you marry me?" The question hung in the air, and for a moment, Emma couldn't breathe. Everything she had feared, everything she had struggled with, all seemed to fall away in that instant. This was the moment she had waited for, the moment where the past and the future collided. She looked up at Liam, her heart racing, her voice barely a whisper as she said, "Yes, yes, I will marry you." Liam's smile stretched from ear to ear, and without another word, he leaned down and kissed her. Their love now sealed in the simplest, yet most profound way. The world around them seemed to stand still as they held each other close, their hearts beating in sync. This was it. This was the beginning of forever. They had built their foundation, brick by brick, with trust, love, and support. And now, they were ready for the next chapter. Together, they would face whatever came their way, knowing that no matter the challenges, they were strong enough to overcome them. Because they had each other. This touching story follows the journey of Emma, a young woman struggling with her finances, who unexpectedly finds love and support in Liam, a wealthy and powerful CEO. As they navigate their differences and build a strong connection, Emma learns to trust and embrace the love Liam offers her, despite her own fears and insecurities. Throughout their journey, Emma discovers that love is not about perfection, but about support, trust, and understanding. The touching story unfolds as Emma faces her financial troubles, her dreams, and her insecurities, with Liam always by her side. Their relationship is tested when a sudden financial crisis threatens to unravel everything, but with Liam's unwavering support, Emma overcomes the challenges and grows stronger. This touching story is a beautiful reminder that true love comes from accepting each other's flaws and standing by each other no matter the circumstances. Watch as Emma and Liam's journey teaches the value of love, commitment, and trust. This touching story will warm your heart and leave you believing in the power of love. If you're a fan of touching stories that inspire and uplift, this one is sure to resonate with you.